رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. To proceed, since before his creation, man was destined for the role of stewardship on earth. From it, he was created. Upon it, he will work. To it, he will return. And from it, he will be raised once more. Allah Ta'ala, He said, هُوَ أَنشَأَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا. He has produced you from the earth and settled you thereupon. Our father Adam alayhi salam, he did not succeed on earth due to copious dhikr and worship only, nor due to supernatural powers superior to that of the angels and all of the other earth-dwelling creatures, but rather, he surpassed the other creations with the knowledge Allah Ta'ala had endowed him with, which helped him harness nature in order to colonize the earth, build upon it, and flourish as a species. This knowledge qualified him for trusteeship of the earth. Islam was finally revealed with guidelines on how mankind may continue colonizing the earth and utilizing its resources without exhausting them nor corrupting the environment in which he lives. The Muslim's view of this vast universe, my dear brothers and sisters, and everything within it, is that it is a product of Allah's perfect design. As such, the Muslim's relationship with the world is one of friendship, not enmity. One of attention and care, not negligence and abuse. Man is entrusted with caring for his planet on which he lives. No other home does he have. Everything in creation does indeed glorify Allah with praise, making everything a Muslim, a submitter to Allah. He said subhanahu wa ta'ala, تُسَبِّحُ لَهُ السَّمَاوَاتُ السَّبْعُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. The seven earths and the heaven and whatever is within them exalt Him, exalt Allah. And there is not a thing except that it exalts Allah with praise. But you do not understand, you do not conceive their way of exaltation. Everything in creation, brothers and sisters, prostrates to Allah with humility and submission. But we cannot perceive their prostration. He said, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَسْجُدُ لَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ والشمس والقمر والنجوم والجبال والدواب والنجوم والجبال والشجر والدواب وكثير من الناس. Do you not see that to Allah prostrates whoever is in the heavens and whoever is on the earth, and the sun and the moon and the stars and the mountains and the trees and whatever treads upon the earth and the people? All of those prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowing this, our view of nature, of the natural world and of the environment transforms into one of intimate friendship and cooperation in our worship, our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as two distinct kinds, but both creations and servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an also informed us that the animals which tread upon the surface of the earth, whom we share our home with, this one home that we share with them, are very much like us. They are nations and kingdoms and communities too. Allah said, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا طَائِرٍ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحَيْهِ إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ. And there is no creature on the earth or bird that flies with its wings except that they are communities like you. Our relationship with nature is also one of teacher and student, where we are in fact the students and nature is the teacher, be it from a behavioral practice such as burial taught to the son of Adam by the crow after Adam's son killed his brother and didn't know what to do with his body. Allah Ta'ala, He tells us, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ غُرَابًا يَبْحَثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُرِيَهُ كَيْفَ يُوَارِي سَوْءَةَ أَخِيهِ. Then Allah sent a crow searching in the ground to show him, the son of Adam, how to hide the disgrace of his brother, the disgrace of the sin which he committed against his brother in murdering him. And for centuries, architects have learned from the structures built by animals such as dams, and such as beehives, and such as tunnels and burrows. And for millennia, humans have sought medicinal remedies from plants and animals, and until today, continue to discover miraculous treatments for previously incurable diseases which man suffers from. None of this, brothers and sisters, comes as a surprise to you. For it is Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala who created everything on earth and subjected it for the use and benefit of mankind. The meat of many animals which we are permitted to eat, their skins, furs and pelts, the milk of animals lawful to consume, the silk of worms, the honey of the bee, the cotton that grows from the ground, the countless fruits and vegetables which we create infinite dishes from. All of this was created in a precise measure for our service. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He said, هو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء لكم منه شراب ومنه شجر فيه تسيمون ينبت لكم به الزرع والزيتون والنخيل والأعناب ومن كل الثمرات إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون. It is He who sends down rain from the sky. From it is drink, and from it is foliage in which you pasture your animals. He causes to grow for you thereby with the rain, the crops, olives, palm trees, grapevines, and from all the fruits. Indeed, in that is a sign for people who give thought. Allah covered 70% of the surface of this planet with water. Water filled with a dazzling beauty and an astonishing array of species with mind-bending physical features. The water itself is buoyant, carrying everything from a lily to a container ship afloat without it sinking. Again, he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَهُوَ الَّذِي سَخَّرَ الْبَحْرَ لِتَأْكُلُوا مِنْهُ لَحْمًا طَرِيًّا وَتَسْتَخْرِجُوا مِنْهُ حِلْيَةً تَلْبَسُونَهَا وَتَرَى الْفُلْكَ مَوَاخِرَ فِيهِ وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. And it is he who subjected the sea for you to eat from it tender meat and extract from it ornaments like pearls which you wear, and you see the ships plowing through it, and he subjected it that you may seek of his bounty, and perhaps you will be grateful. Are we grateful for these blessings? Do we realize what it means that we live on a hospitable planet? The space missions, my dear brothers and sisters, which cost billions upon billions, have one main objective: to search for inhabitable planets, which one day human colonies may settle on. But none of them have returned successfully. There is only one home that we have, and it is this earth. It is not hostile, and it is hospitable. Allah readied the earth and made its terrain accessible so that we may seek our provision on earth. He said, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ. It is he who made the earth tame for you. So walk among its slopes and eat from his provision. Allah prepared this planet with provisions which will suffice all of its inhabitants until the end of time. He said, وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ مِنْ فَوْقِهَا وَبَارَكَ فِيهَا وَقَدَّرَ فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا فِي أَرْبَعَةِ أَيَّامٍ سَوَاءً لِلسَّائِلِينَ. And he placed on the earth firmly set mountains over its surface. And he blessed it and determined therein its sustenance in 4 days without distinction for those who ask. Allah said sawa'an, without distinction, meaning that every living organism without exception has its sustenance guaranteed for it. Why is it then that we witness plants and animals, and of course human beings, experiencing shortages of sustenance and provision, sometimes to the extent of extinction? Did Allah not create enough resources for every inhabitant of the earth? Is there not enough space on earth to accommodate man with his increasing technological advances and the animal kingdom? What we observe, my dear brothers and sisters, with our own eyes today, of animals living on the brink of extinction, entire ecosystems decimated, water shortages, polluted waters, dying coral reefs, unbreathable air, mass deforestation, erratic weather patterns, and so on, are not the result of a deficient design. فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. This destruction which we witness in our world is the doing of man. And this is confirmed by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala when he said, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Corruption has appeared throughout the land and sea by what the hands of men, the hands of people have earned, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may make them taste part of what they have done, that perhaps they will return. Every action, brothers and sisters, has a consequence. Whether you see it or not, a luxury of living in a developed country is that we often don't see the effects of our excessive consumption and usage of natural resources. But growing campaigns have increasingly exposed to us the magnitude of the damage we have inflicted on our planet, which instead of maintaining it as trustees must do, many of us have ravaged it like enemies do. While Allah has subjected the earth, the water and plants and animals for our service and benefits, He created delicate ecosystems in which all may thrive. And He created them in precise measure. إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Indeed, surely we created everything in a precise measure. And Allah revealed to mankind the means by which He may flourish, the means by which we as a species may flourish, while gently maintaining the balance between consumption and production. The general principle, dear brothers and sisters, one which we all know, which governs man's usage of the natural world, is moderation. It is moderation. It is enshrined in Islam and is dictated by the Qur'an. Allah Ta'ala, He said, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat and drink, but be not excessive. إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Indeed, He, Allah, does not like those who commit excess. Allah does not like the excessive. And spending mustn't be excessive either, as it necessitates removing more resources to meet people's increasing desire for luxury and extravagance, which Allah does not love. When He described Ibadur Rahman, the true servants of the All-Merciful, Allah said, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. And they are the believers, the servants of the All-Merciful, those who, when they spend, do so not excessively or sparingly, but are ever between those two, moderate. We spoke in our previous sermon 2 weeks ago about man's duty to maintain and safeguard the amana, the trust, placed on our shoulders as Allah's vicegerents, His khulafa. This planet, everyone and everything in and upon it are trusts, are amanat. They are trusts which we have been charged with conserving. You may ask, and many people are thinking this right now, how will we prosper as mankind without causing harm to the environment? It's inevitable, isn't it? Islamic jurists, dear brothers and sisters, distilled from the prophetic sunnah a legal maxim, which is agreed upon by consensus. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, لا ضرر ولا ضرار. There should be no harm, nor reciprocating harm. And the usuli scholars, the scholars of Islamic legal theory, also agree on a principle which states, درء المفاسد مقدم على جلب المصالح. Repelling harms takes precedence over reaping benefits. What this means, brothers and sisters, is that if profiting from the environment by extracting its minerals and burning its fossil fuels, for example, has a greater harm on the environment than the benefits that we gain, then repelling those harms takes precedence over reaping those benefits. Can it be then that Islam is against modern advancements in technology and advocates a return to pre-industrial standards of living? The answer is no, of course. The previous maxims which we mentioned have exceptions and are further qualified with other maxims such as الضرر لا يزال بضرر مثله. Harm is not removed by a greater harm. It's inconceivable for mankind to stop driving, flying, sailing, farming, innovating, building and constructing. Not only do the majority of people's livelihoods depend on modern technologies, which use a great amount of natural resources, but also our own lives. Our own lives. The medicines that we use and the medical treatments that we undergo also rely heavily on natural resources. And so the greater harm inflicted on the environment can only be repelled by us enduring a lesser harm. By us enduring a lesser harm. The jurists say, الضرر الأشد يزال بالأخف. The greater harm is repelled by a lesser harm. Is repelled by a lesser harm. In this case, a lesser harm to the environment and a lesser harm to ourselves. What is that lesser harm to ourselves? It is in reducing our consumption. Many people assume or take that as an attack on their freedom and on their sovereignty. But that's not the case. Take, for example, one country, brothers and sisters, which constitutes 5% of the global population, consumes 24% of the world's energy. 24%. This means there's a stark inequality in the distribution of natural resources. We overeat, buy clothes we hardly wear, drive when we can walk, order frivolous goods online on a whim, throw away rather than recycle, chuck away electronics rather than fix them. All we do is consume. Let everyone review their own usage. All we do is consume. So, there is an individual obligation on us to not exceed our needs. As we said, Allah said, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat and drink and do not exceed. The technology which itself relies and is fueled by natural resources has reached breakthroughs, brothers and sisters, as we know, in the means by which we can harness the energy of nature with a minimal impact on it. Renewable energy is no longer a thing, is no longer stuff of science fiction. Solar and wind energy are slowly rendering fossil fuels obsolete, meaning that in the near future, inshallah, burning fossil fuels will only be for a limited use. So the case for burning fossil fuels is increasingly weakening. And again, another maxim deduced by the Islamic jurists here governs our use of the natural resources. مَا جَازَ بِعُذْرٍ بَطَلَ بِزَوَالِهِ. What is permissible with due cause is impermissible in the absence of that cause. When there is no longer a cause to burn fossil fuels, no longer a cause to use unrecyclable plastics and materials that do not biodegrade, when there's no longer a cause, it's no longer permissible to use. Because the harm it inflicts on the environment is greater than the benefit that you gain by, oh, my drink staying cool for a bit longer. Our excuses for using non-renewable energy and unsustainable materials are slowly but surely running out. It's our duty, brothers and sisters, as individuals and as populations whose habits change over time, to turn our backs on companies and products with a high carbon footprint, and especially on those with a known track record of unethical and hostile practices towards the environment, our environment, which we live in. Brothers and sisters, Allah made us trustees who must observe an active role in spreading justice on earth. Justice amongst mankind, justice amongst the animal world, justice with the air that we breathe, justice with the water that we drink, justice with the earth that we live upon, and justice with the plants that beautify this planet. Do not sit idly like a spectator, watching the world being destroyed from above your head and from beneath your feet. Exercise your consumer sovereignty by dealing only with environmentally friendly companies. Exercise your democratic rights by voting for parties who care about everyone's well-being and the well-being of the environment that we live in. Be a voice for change, brothers and sisters. Do not be a trustee only by name. Fulfill the role for which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala created you for. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على الحبيب المصطفى وبعد. Brothers and sisters, there is a greater impetus on us as Muslims to care for the environment and devise methods for protecting it from all harms while still gaining from its bounties. This is because we understand our role as trustees of the earth. We adhere to the religion of Islam, which commands us to utilize the earth's resources without exhausting and plundering them. Islam, which commands us to use only what we need. Islam, which told us that Allah appreciated a man who quenched a dog's thirst and he admitted him into paradise. What about quenching the thirst of millions, humans and animal alike? Islam, which told us that a woman entered the fire for imprisoning a cat and leaving it to starve to death. What then about causing the death and suffering of millions of humans and millions of animals and plants too? Whether it be through eradicating entire ecosystems by mining or deforestation or illegal dumping of toxins and toxic waste. Brothers and sisters, the Sharia does not explicitly mention the word environment or pollution, but it makes reference to them and reminds us of our duty of care and maintenance towards the environment and towards nature. Whether it be through financial incentives to cultivate arid land, barren land. As the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, if anyone brings barren land into cultivation, meaning bringing dead earth, dead land back to life, then it belongs to him. He gains ownership over it. Of course, in the place of a legal system that allows for that. And we know, brothers and sisters, that we live not for this dunya, we live for the hereafter. And thus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only incentivizes us with worldly incentives, such as owning the land that you cultivate, but with promises of everlasting reward in the hereafter, which is what we are after. It's what we want, is it not? As the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, there is none amongst the Muslims who plants a tree or sows seeds, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, except that it is regarded as a charitable gift from him. A sadaqah. And you didn't intend to spend it or to pay it to the animal or to the bird or to a passing person. Even without your permission, it's recorded for you as a sadaqah. The concept of environmental friendliness is not a new one, and it's not alien to this religion, brothers and sisters. Don't think that we're up here talking about a subject that has nothing to do with Islam. It has everything to do with Islam. The fuel of life, water, is something that Islam protected from waste from the day one. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As reported that the Rasul ﷺ passed by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and he was doing wudu and using water excessively. And he said, "Ma hada sarafu ya Sa'd?" What is this excess, O Sa'd? And he said, "Afil wudu'i saraf?" Is there excessiveness, O Messenger of Allah, in wudu? And he said, yes. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ عَلَى نَهْرٍ جَارٍ. Even if you are on a passing river, don't use the water excessively. As a trustee, my brothers and sisters, you must not only maintain those who you currently care for, but you must make provisions for those who will come after you. Pave the way for them to live fruitful and prosperous lives in a flourishing and thriving natural world. That is why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged us to leave a legacy, not a legacy of destruction and pollution, a legacy of life, a legacy of resources for everyone to enjoy. When he said, 7 actions, the reward of which will continue to be written for the servant in his grave after his death. The one who had imparted knowledge, teaching knowledge, and or dug a canal, or dug a well, or planted a tree, or built a masjid, or left a Qur'an in inheritance, or left behind a righteous son who seeks forgiveness for him. Dear brothers and sisters, do not be a burden or a drain on this world's resources. Do what you can to offset your carbon footprint. If not yourself, then aid and support those who can. This is your duty as a trustee, your duty as a custodian. Reform. Perform islah, reform. For Allah indeed loves those who reform. هذا وصلوا وسلموا على خير الأنام فإن الله أمركم بأمر بدأ به بنفسه وثنى بملائكة قدسه ثم بكم أيها المؤمنون فقال جل من قائل إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين وأعل بفضلك كلمتي الحق والدين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزد لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقم الصلاة